Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Holly Wharton. I've been an entrepreneur since 1999, and I know firsthand how difficult it can be to build a business without the right mindset. This is a podcast for those of us who struggle with showing up in our business with confidence and authenticity, who resist taking big action because of fears and doubts, who know deep down that it's possible to create something bigger, and yet you're not. This podcast combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business more easily in a way that feels aligned. This podcast features solo shows with me and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world, including my monthly co-hosted episodes with Joe Casey. My goal is to help you grow your business more quickly and easily by transforming your mindset. For me, mindset work is a lifelong practice, and I want to help you make a habit out of mindset work. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 223. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm here with today's special guest, Tina Conroy. Tina helps women to strengthen their inner voice by improving mental and physical health to synchronize the mind-body connection. She's also an intuitive energy healer and medium, and she hosts the Intuitive Woman Podcast, a weekly podcast that explores intuition. As you know by now, I'm a super huge fan of intuition and talking about intuition, so I'm really excited to have Tina on the show. So welcome, Tina.
I'm so excited to be with you today, Holly. Thank you.
So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today with your intuitive business?
Oh, sure. My goodness. It's always like coming out of the spiritual closet again and again. So I'm going to go back to when I was little because I think that's really important. And I think a lot of people may share experiences like I have. When I was little, I was extremely scared of the dark. And I didn't really know. Now I kind of know that spirit was trying to contact me and reach me. And I was probably a portal to allow that. But I was very scared. I was brought up Catholic and I thought all of this stuff was the devil's work and it was bad. And although that we weren't extremely religious enough that it was dark and it was bad. And I went through many years of not being able to sleep at night, afraid of the dark. I mean, really up until like my preteen years. And I remember like literally banging on my parents' door and asking them, let me sleep on your floor or let me sleep in the bed. And they were just wanting me to grow up. And they said, absolutely not. And I slept many nights on the bathroom floor with the light on.
Oh.
I don't judge them. They were like, go back to your room and it's all fine. And I would literally take the covers and put them over my head and just be like count to 10 and I knew that there was a presence or something in my room and I didn't feel good. Then I went through a period that it was about 15 or so and things would literally move in my room. And I know that sounds so crazy. And I, to this day, keep thinking, was I crazy? But I would literally feel a presence again when I was in my room. I would turn and like the radio station would change or object would move, but I didn't see it move, but it would, as soon I moved and then it was moved. And one time I literally screamed for my mom and she actually saw it. She actually saw the radio at the time. They had these big dials and the dial literally moved to the right and the left. Now it was normal for stations to go in and out, but it was not normal for this dial to turn. Mm-hmm. And now when I speak to her, she said, yeah, I just didn't want to alarm you, but obviously there was something present in your room.
Wow.
So flash forward, I'm a teenager, I go to college, and I think I just try to repress all that stuff and just afraid of it. And then in college, my big story is my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, I had this very intense dream. And that's how spirit connects with me. A lot of it's dream time. And I had this dream. He was in college. I'm in college. And I had this dream that he was being chased. I could feel the wind. I could feel the truck like going through the mountains and woods. He was in a very rural place and like scared for his life. Mm-hmm. And in the morning, when I finally reached out to him, again, no cell phones, no internet at this time. And I finally got a hold of him and I said, what happened last night? Are you okay? And he basically was like, I won't say exactly what he said, but he said, oh my God, I always knew you were crazy, but now I know. So it was sort of that moment where he believed there was something and I believed and I started to embrace it. So that was sort of like the story. And then time went on and so forth. I will say that after I had both my children, I had them very young, I chose to teach yoga to children and adults. And from that point, I think everything started opening up. It was the yoga. It was the mind, body, spirit connection. I then got connected to Reiki energy work, and it opened. The flood doors opened. I just said, oh my God, there is no holding back. And that was when I knew there was a learning, like we have to learn a little bit because I didn't have boundaries. So I developed it a little bit more because it was scary still for me. I would see images when I had my hands on people, like full-blown images of people. I then really did the right training and correct training for boundaries. And the biggest lesson I got was, you're a person with a body, spirit is not. And you need boundaries. So you need to call the shot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you think was the turning point that allowed you to give yourself permission to start embracing this? Was it that night when you had that dream about your now husband?
That was when I realized there was something there. Like this was not going away, and I need to be less afraid of it and embrace it. And that, I think that was sort of one of the first validations, like, oh, whoa, how did that happen?
How did your family respond when you came out with this?
Well, this is the thing. I never did. Okay. I never, ever came out with it for quite a long time. Now, the interesting story is that my grandmother, and she has passed now, we finally called her grandmommy, was highly psychic and highly intuitive. But it's really interesting because as I grew up, the only thing I knew is she would call the family. She would make all these phone calls and she would say, where is so-and-so? What's going on? And my mom would answer, everyone's here, and give her kind of like an update. Well, what I didn't realize till years later was she would have the dream. And the dream was always something bad would happen and someone would die.
Ooh.
And she never knew who it was. It could be a friend, it could be a family, it could be an acquaintance, but she always knew it was coming. So I didn't know that was happening as I was growing up. But there was one time, unfortunately, my uncle of 33, she had the dream, and he died very, very suddenly. And that's when it kind of all came together like, oh boy, she can predict this. And but again, it was a bad thing. I didn't want it. So I never told anybody about anything until, my mom knew about the movement and things like that in my room, but I never really told anybody anything until much later on when I started doing this work professionally. And that was a little tough.
That was going to be my next question. So how was it easy? Was it hard? What was it like for you to go public about this? Because this kind of stuff still isn't mainstream.
No, my parents they kind of listened like, okay, like they didn't know really what to do or say. They were okay with the yoga part. That's like yoga was just getting on the scene. First of all, they had no idea what Reiki is. I don't think they even know still what it is. And then when I started doing readings, so I used to do readings for people privately and I would never tell anyone. And then I started doing more professional readings. They were sort of like, they didn't really know what to do, but now they're absolutely embrace it. And my mom's always giving me people. My mom's my best marketer. She's like, go to my daughter. Now it's amazing. But in the beginning, it was like, is this real? Is this okay? It wasn't so much a religious thing. I think they were just like, how do you do that? Or I think they were afraid also.
Yeah. And possibly afraid for your safety. If you were attracting weird stuff as a child, they might think, what door is she going to open up?
Exactly.
So why do you think that these things that you're experiencing as a child happen to some people and not more people? Is it because some people are ready for it, some people aren't?
I think that as a child, I think most children, actually they say all children, are very open and receptive. But I think there's just a time and a place. I know people that have had these type of experiences much later on in life. And so I think it can happen at any time. I really truly believe, Holly, that everybody's intuitive, but I also believe everybody's psychic. And there's this whole thing about, psychic and intuitive, but see, psychic ability is part of that intuition. It's like kindergarten and then it's grade school, right?
Yeah. Okay, so tell us more about how you think everyone's psychic. Tell us more about that. Because I think most people would say, like, I'm not psychic. Most people aren't aware of the possibilities.
I think everybody is intuitive, so we'll start there. Okay. Everybody is intuitive and has those intuitive abilities, and it's one of our senses. And I love that it's not the sixth sense. A lot of people will say it's the first sense, and I really believe that. Psychic ability, everybody has as well. But again, it's like going to that next grade level. So everybody has the ability to be psychic or more psychic, however you want to But there is a little bit more work there. There's a little bit more opening up to the spirit realm, allowing yourself to take that little bit more step. I've done some psychic work with different, there's Berkeley Psychic Institute that I've done some work at, and I've worked with other psychics and mediums. So I think that you develop it if there's a desire to develop it. But I believe everybody can do this psychic work. It's just a much more developed work and a need and a want. I think you have to also want it. Not everybody wants it.
Exactly. Yeah. If our listeners wanted to develop their psychic abilities, what would be one step that they could take to open themselves up to improving that?
But one of the things I like, which is so simple and easy, and we're always in this idea of trusting our psychic abilities or trusting intuition. So one of the things I do with my students, I do intuitive development courses, is I say, let's start with something that's not going to shake the boat. Nothing too serious. So something like this. Okay, so I'll do one that I used to do all the time. I'm going to go teach a yoga class, and I'm thinking, how many people are going to be in class today? Number 4 comes into my head. That just comes in. I just allow it to come in. Number 4. And I walk into the studio and I see how many people are there. Now, everybody will say, well, is there 4? Is there 5? Is there 6? But it's the practice of talking to spirit and talking to yourself. So that's one. Another one might be, I'm going around the corner and there's going to be a parking spot right in front or next to this building. And the thing about it that I like, that I always teach my students, is when things don't work out, right? When you go and it's not 4 people, it's 2 people or 2 students, that's okay, because you're still developing the muscle. So that's one little trick. And there's so many other little ones we do in class and in the workshop, but that's one that you could just do it anytime, whenever you want.
I love that, because that also makes it kind of like a game rather than making it so serious.
Exactly, because a lot of people like to start with, will this happen? Will this big thing happen? Will I get the job? Right? And when they start with that, there's so much of a charge behind it. It's like when they ask those big questions to spirit or intuitive using their psychic ability, there's so much charge behind it, especially as you're starting out, that it's hard to be neutral. Now, that's the other part. Neutrality is such a big thing and such a big word when it comes to intuition and psychic ability. We have to be neutral to the outcome. So if I walked into the yoga studio and there's 5, I said, thank you, spirit. I still learned something there, right? But there's no charge there. So when you start out with little baby things like a parking spot, or how many people are going to show up at your online course, or how many people are going to show up in your classroom, it doesn't have such a charge that is going to be overwhelming.
I think that's so important, because
right?
I think people tend to go for the big stuff, like, will I get married next year? Rather than playing with the smaller things that you can be neutral towards, because if you have such an emotional charge, it's really easy to just get caught up in the process rather than being open to developing that muscle, as you said.
Yep, absolutely.
So one of the main things I wanted to talk to you about today was using daily ritual or routines to move from chaos to flow in your life. And I think daily rituals are so, so important. And everyone's got their own perspective on how to create them. But I think it's fair to say that probably most of our listeners don't have a daily routine. So what do you recommend? How do you recommend people get started? What does your daily routine look like?
I love talking about this because this has truly changed my life. This has truly changed my focus and my business. So we're right now in the midst of Chaos to Flow, my online course, which I will do again. So my daily routine, my ritual, has become non-negotiable for me. And how it looks is I wake up pretty early in the morning. And what I did is I used to wake up, say, 6:40 a.m. Now I wake up 5:40 a.m. So there is a bit of a discussion you have with yourself to get up a little bit earlier, because the majority of people say to me, I don't have any time. I don't have enough time. And we all have the same 24 hours in the day. Yeah. And so we just allow ourselves to come. I think the morning is very important. I do have people that struggle with me and say, no, it has to be at night. But I truly believe the morning is key. So I got up an hour earlier. I come downstairs, I get my cup of coffee. I'm a huge coffee drinker. It's my first thing I do. And then I pretty much do these things in order. I journal, but I'll tell you how I journal because this has really changed. I pull an oracle card every day, and then I meditate for just about 10 minutes. That's pretty much what I do every day. And it doesn't take that long. It might sound like a lot. So my journaling, I journaled all my life. I had many diaries, like the little girl diary with the key in the right. I'm like,
I had one of those.
How many. So many. And those were just bash sessions. They were like, I look back at those journals, they were just blah, blah, like going on and on. But more recently, I journal with 3 major prompts. The first one I do is a brain dump. I let everything out of my brain and I don't go down the rabbit hole. So I let it out and I go, but if I'm starting to go and go, I stop it. So just enough to kind of clear some space. Then I move into, and I could take a page or a paragraph. Then I move into gratitude. And I'm always grateful for my cup of coffee. I'm always grateful for whatever. And then I am grateful for, I am grateful for, I am grateful for. And that can go on, again, paragraph or a page or 2. But then the third part, which just really changed my whole life and my focus. I call it visioning or dreaming. You can call it vision or dream. And I write all my dream and vision each day, every single day. Now, I have to tell you that was the hardest thing for me to do in the beginning because I wasn't dreaming big enough. I see myself having a healthy relationship. I would play small. Small. Or I would say, I see my whatever. And I go, well, why did I say $2,000 a month? I want $20,000. So over time, I developed that muscle that I can play to win and play big and dream big because this is me. I want it. But in the beginning, it was that worthiness a little bit, which I've always struggled with. Can I dream that big? Can I write that down on paper? Can I really run 3 retreats a year? Can I run a retreat outside of New York State? Whatever. And it has truly transformed my life and transformed my business. Also, a lot of the things that I write have come to fruition.
Okay, that was my next question. How effective is this as a tool? Like, how's it changed your life and business?
Holly, I have to tell you that if I can go back, I have created courses. I have created podcast episodes. I booked and sold out retreats. It really is like a manifesto, or I don't even know what to call it. It's been truly amazing.
And do you really tap into the emotion as you're writing it, or are you just writing, this is my dream?
I really tap into the emotion and the I am, it is already here. I've always struggled with food, right? So I'll say that. So I always with like a relationship with it more so. So sometimes it's, I have a healthy relationship with food. I feel wonderful in my body. Everything feels wonderful. The sun is shining. I'm whatever. Like I just go. But that's an example because that's a physical example. But yes, emotion and in the I presence.
Okay, good. So present tense.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. I think that's really great to have a structure to the journaling because I think some people don't know what to write. How do I journal? Do I use someone else's prompts? Do I do the morning pages thing? And
I agree.
And this is, I think the brain dump is good because it declutters your mind. Gratitude is super important. And I really love the vision dream sequence for manifesting because I think a lot of people don't know. You hear about manifesting, but I think a lot of people really struggle to actually make it work.
I agree. And I think that I do this process a lot with the women I work with. And it's interesting because I was just recently working with someone and she said, well, I did it for 4 days. And it was really difficult to kind of do it. And she said, oh, I don't like journaling. I said, just try it for 4 days. Try for 5 days. We could do anything for 5 days. And she said, well, I kept writing the same thing over and over again. And we dug in a little deeper. When we really got to it, it's that she didn't have the confidence to really allow herself to put the thoughts on paper.
Oh.
And so there was a lot around that. But again, it mostly comes out in that dream work because women feel guilty to dream too big, or maybe they have a lot already and they feel worse if they get more or want more.
I don't deserve more. I've got enough.
Yes.
So what else makes up your daily ritual?
So I love oracle cards.
Right.
Many decks. I have angel decks. I have fairy decks. I have mermaid decks. I have many decks. And so every morning I take out my deck, whatever I'm working with, and I kind of fan the cards, and I love my cards. I just enjoy them so much. And I hold them in my hands and I say, Spirit, what do I need to know today? And that is what I ask every single day. Now, sometimes I might phrase it, Spirit, what do I need to know about my business today? Or Spirit, what do I need to know about this relationship today? And I usually choose one card. Sometimes I choose 3, but I usually choose one card. And then I just choose the card. And right now I'm in in love with the Wisdom of the Oracle. That's the name of the deck. I look at this beautiful picture because they're so beautiful. And I just leave the card out. And what I do is I have this, I guess like an altar, you would say. And I go throughout my day. Oh, well, I do write the card in my journal. So I might say like today, I chose the card for our show. And the card is deep knowing. So if it was in the morning, I would write card for the day, deep knowing. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, or when I go back, that card is already on the altar for the morning. I kind of like allow myself to think and resonate. Did that card, a lot of times the card right away resonates, but sometimes it doesn't. But then as the next day comes, it has resonated throughout the day.
Yeah. I love that. So how long does your morning ritual take you?
Let's see. I would say probably about 40 minutes.
Okay. And has your morning ritual evolved since you started doing it?
You mean adding more things?
Yeah, adding more things or changing things or doing it differently?
I do sometimes. So I also do try to sit another 10 minutes for meditation. I do just a very simple seated meditation with the breath for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I start journaling and I love it. And then I pull the card and I go, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time, or something like that. I'll be honest. But I feel like I do meditate throughout the day, even though I don't how do I explain it? Sometimes it'll be in the middle of the day and I'll just close my eyes. And I think because I'm so connected to the energy, Reiki energy, I'll put my hands on my heart. And sometimes I'll just sit, turn everything off, take 10 deep breaths. And that's fine. That may be my meditation for the day.
I like that. I think it's so easy for us to get wrapped up in the to-do list, in our calls, interviews, all the stuff that we're doing all day, and forget that we can just take 5 or 10 minutes to be silent and do a mini meditation.
I think it's interesting. I was teaching meditation in a hospital for a while, and I just told them 5 minutes. And they're all looking at me. Oh, well, I was told 20 minutes twice a day. So we would meet once a week. And I said, everybody has a smartphone of some kind or whatever, a timer. Sit for 5 minutes. When the 5 minutes are up, you're done. And it's just like brushing your, because I think everybody wants to learn how to meditate. And I get this a lot. And there are many forms, of course, but the biggest part is just to do it. Yeah. Just sit. So if we can sit and, don't sit cross-legged and just sit in a chair. I teach it in a chair with your feet on the ground, and 5 minutes are up, move on with your day. Tomorrow, 5 minutes are up, move on with your day, and continue that habit, because as we know, habits that's kind of the groove in your brain that kind of creates that new pathway.
And once you've created that habit, I'm assuming it's going to get easier for most people, and they can expand on that time if they want to.
Exactly.
So how does this daily ritual or daily routine help you move from chaos to flow in your life?
Well, I think when I wake up in the morning, and just setting my day. It's so important for me to set my day on a positive, intended day. And honestly, I really love the phrase, happiness is an inside job, because it just like resonates with me, because not every day we're happy. Not every morning we wake up and, love the birds are singing and all that. But when I make that time and I make that intention, I can connect with myself. And for me, it's connecting with spirit. So I allow myself to be quiet, to have these special moments, to do these things that really resonate with my soul. And it's like my soul speaks to me. And then the day just flows. And I'm not saying the day is going to be perfect, but there is a different energy when I haven't done it than when I have. It feels so much better. And I feel like spirit's on my side. Like I feel like I've co-created with spirit. It's like putting on this nice warm jacket, and I'm going to go out through the day. And yes, things are going to come up, but it's going to hopefully just roll off my back, and I'm going to move through the flow. And it just feels much better, and it goes much better.
And it's also about connecting and grounding rather than getting straight into your day. I think it's very centering.
Very, very much so. I really believe it centers. Everyone connects to what their center is for different people, or like if I said to someone, like, connect to your spirit, not everybody might be like, well, it can be whatever it is. For me, it's my heart center.
Yeah.
And I feel that my spirit's within me and around me. But for me, if someone said, oh, where is it in your body? I would say my heart center. Now, some people might say it's in their crown chakra or their third eye or whatever. But for me, it's in the heart. And so I do work a lot with placing my hands on my heart, taking a couple breaths, and connecting to that. And it centers me, it grounds me, and it allows me to move forward.
So if our listeners would like to get started crafting their own daily ritual or routine, what would you say the first steps would be?
Well, the first step would be looking at, can they get up a little earlier in the morning? I hate to say that, but it truly is. If they can just look at their day and look at their morning, and I know everyone has very busy schedules, and if you have children and don't have children, can you get up a little earlier? And so just set that time, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. And so that would be the very first action step.
Excellent. And then when they're thinking about what kinds of elements and things they want to add to their daily ritual, would you recommend they just start with some of the things that you've mentioned today, or how should they craft it so it works for them?
I love the journaling. I love the whole idea. I'm a very tactile person. So I love getting a journal and going to the store, but it could be a piece of paper. It could be anything they want. I like that. It gets you in the flow and allows you to write, and it's coming out of your head and into the pen. So I would say start with that and see how that goes, and use the prompts. If we kind of just, again, go down the rabbit hole, we could just be complaining, or you know what I mean? It's nice to have a set thing to do.
I agree. An old business coach of mine had encouraged me to do the morning pages, which is 3 A4 or letter-sized pages a day, and I hated it. And I decided I was going to stick with it. I cannot remember, but I think I stuck with it for a year because everyone had said it was so amazing. And I hated every minute of it. It was just all my negativity that was coming up. It was just awful. So I think I really like the way you kind of reframe this with the brain dump, but keep it short, then do the gratitude, then do the visioning, because as you said, you can just kind of get down that rabbit hole of what's not working.
Now, in the morning pages, because I'm not aware of that, is it just 3 pages of anything you want? Oh, I see.
No, it's like automatic writing. So it comes from The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron's book.
Okay.
So it's 3 kind of large notebook-sized pages, 3 sides, and it would take me like 40 minutes to do. And it's just kind of a brain dump or stream of consciousness writing, but for some reason, I don't know that I was going through a negative time in my life at that point, but it was just awful. It was like pulling teeth, but I did it and did not enjoy it. So if it works for you, do it. If it doesn't.
Sure. And I think that was most of my journals and my diaries my whole life.
Yeah.
It was always complaining, or it was so many of that. It didn't feel good for me. And so I like that the brain dump, I keep it short, I keep it sweet, I get it out, then I go to gratitude, which is such a change.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that automatically shifts your mind from wherever it might have been to where you want to be, which is grateful and happy and positive.
Right. And dreaming, which I love.
Exactly. So, Tina, tell us where people can find you online. Where do you hang out?
I hang out, in social media. I'm a huge Facebook person. So I have the Intuitive Women group and also the Intuitive Women page. So that is a really fun place to find me. My Facebook group is growing by the numbers. I think we're at 552. I'm waiting for that 555 special number. And it's like-minded people. Every Friday Eastern time, I do what's called Live at 5. So I post cards, or I post them in the morning, and I post them on all my social media, and that would really just be Facebook and Instagram. And then I ask everybody to ask a question, leave a comment. I always say ask Spirit open-minded questions. So what does Spirit want me to know? X, not a yes or no, because those are hard. And then they kind of all put number 1, number 2, number 3, whatever card. And then at 5 p.m. Eastern, I go live. And I go live on my page and I stream it to my group. And people just check in, and I reveal the cards. And then if they're live, they ask questions, and I just do Facebook readings right there on the spot.
I like that.
Yeah, it's fun.
And you also have your Intuitive Woman podcast?
Yes, the Intuitive Women podcast. And it's varied between solo shows and interview shows. The solo shows I do a lot of meditations, short meditations. I just released one recently that is to meet your spirit guide. It's one of my favorites. It's really one of my favorites. I feel like that was almost channeled. I never like to say the word channel, but I almost feel like that was channeled. And I have done some short yoga practices. So a lot of my students like to take me on the road, and they were vacationing over the last couple months, and short yoga practices. And then, of course, I love to have like-minded women on my show to talk about their passion and intuition and all that.
Sounds good. And so how can our listeners work with you? What are the different ways that you help people?
Well, the biggest way that I work with women is through my mentorship programs. So I have a smaller mentorship program and then a level 1, 2, and 3. My first kind of intro is like 30 days to healing, I call it. And that is a combination of coaching. Also, there is meditation work and energy treatments. And actually, energy treatments now are in person or through, believe it or not, distant healing. And then the next step up would be like my 90-day programs. I have level 1, 2, and 3. It's the Intuitive Women Mentorship Program. And those are more the deep dive. I would say it's for women that are looking to their spiritual practice. And they also will get trained in Reiki levels. So Reiki level 1, 2, and 3. Intuitive work, really get into intuition and the clairs and all the clairvoyance work and mindfulness.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. And I love talking about not just daily rituals, but your intuition and how you came out of the spiritual closet.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, Holly.
Thank you. And to our listeners, do check out Tina's podcast, the Intuitive Woman podcast. The meditations are great. The solo shows are great. The interviews are great. So really, really recommend it. So look for it wherever you listen to your podcast. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/223 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for the topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and learn more about business mindset, join my private community for entrepreneurs at hollywharton.com/group. That will redirect you to the Facebook group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you so much.